When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying. Or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.
Today is the first day of 2025. How will your life be different at the end of this year? It's totally possible to make huge strides towards the person you're capable of becoming this year, and it starts with just 14 minutes and 24 seconds. You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 183, Improve Your Future in Just 14 Minutes and 24 Seconds. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode. I'm so happy you're here today. How is your moment of greatness? Did you have any this past week? It makes such a difference to realize when your moments of greatness actually are. It makes your life so much better. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, it is New Year's Day today, 2025. How is this possible? While it's a great time to reflect on your future, especially your next 12 months, we know that most people have stopped all of their New Year's resolutions by mid-February. I love planning and dreaming big too, but oftentimes what we think are plans and resolutions are actually just wishes. So today we're going to step back and I'm going to give you a possible mission, should you choose to accept it, that will help you to not self-destruct in 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So in December of 2022, I went and finished my level 2 heroic coach certification in LA, and one of the speakers at our conference was named Brian Kane. His presentation was like watching the loudest, highest energy, most positive person you can imagine give a talk while on caffeine, amphetamines, and Provigil all at the same time. I mean that in the most loving way possible. He is fabulous, but he's extremely effective at what he calls bringing the juice. He for sure brings the juice, and he got us all fired up. He got us all over the top yelling certain phrases that surfaced the next day during the Spartan race that we all did together. He also hosted the most exhilarating rock, paper, scissors tournament you could possibly imagine. Anyway, he's tall and super fit and is this mental toughness coach to several MMA fighters and some other professional athletes, baseball players, I think. Anyway, he's great, and he even ran the Spartan race with the rest of us lowly humans, and he happened to be on my same bus to Lake Casitas, where he learned my name and he brought the juice on the way to the race. I was there all by my lonesome, and when I was coming around a muddy corner during the race with my sandbag, I heard someone yell, "Yeah, Christina!" And I was like, what the heck? Nobody knows me here. But then I realized it was him. Pretty cool. He was the reason when each of us saw someone else with a matching heroic t-shirt in the race course, one of us would yell, "The longer it goes," and the other would answer, "The stronger I get." Fun stuff. I'm going to come back to him in a minute. But on this New Year's Day, as you're thinking about what one thing you could do to make the biggest difference for you in your ability to age at an elite level this year, so you're setting yourself up to be able to live more as you get older rather than less, let's briefly mention the British cycling team from around 20 years ago. I feel like this story has been slightly beaten to death since James Clear wrote about them in Atomic Habits, so I'm sorry if you've heard it a million times. Just to briefly recap, the extremely mediocre British bicycle racing teams were a bit of a joke in the cycling world. Everybody kind of looked down on them and certainly didn't expect anything impressive from any of them. No British cyclist had won the Tour de France in 110 years. It was the way it was, even though they were spending tons of money and time trying to rise above mediocrity. Then in 2003, the British cycling team got a new coach named Dave Brailsford. I don't know anything about anything, but I imagine that getting a new coach probably feels a little bit like a New Year's Day. They usually have new objectives and goals that probably sound a lot like resolutions. They hope for dramatic changes that will lead to a type of victory that has never been achieved before. Dave Brailsford was different. He started measuring all kinds of metrics and aiming to make tiny changes. He said, the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improved it by 1%, you would get a significant increase when you put them all together. When everyone else thought that in order to make giant improvements, you needed to go big, he went small, 1% small. He broadened his focus while narrowing it at the same time. He became all about aggregating marginal gains for the good of the team. He improved things by 1%, like the kind of beds they slept on, their equipment, the kind of fabric that touched their skin, and the way they received their meals. As I'm sure you remember, British cyclists have now won the Tour de France 6 times, and Great Britain has been the most successful country across all cycling disciplines in the past 5 Olympic Games, winning more gold medals in cycling than any other country in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. Dave even got knighted in 2013 and is now Sir Dave Brailsford, all because he went big by going small. If you listened to last week's episode, I hope you recognize that Sir Dave's moment of greatness wasn't when Queen Elizabeth knighted him by tapping the sword on his shoulders, which is way cool. It was when he figured out that making sure his athletes could sleep on the same pillow every night, even when they were on the road, improved their performance by 1%. Right? So my challenge to you on this lovely New Year's Day is to still dream big, but to also consider making tiny, consistent changes that you can aggregate and compound into something incredible, like sidestepping the chronic diseases of aging and feeling good in your body for many decades to come. There's a lot involved in that process, but you can absolutely do it 1% at a time. The sublime comes through the mundane. Our life is a collection of mostly mundane moments, so why not turn them into something sublime? What are all the areas that play a role in a sublime life where you're able to live and give more as you get older rather than less? How can you get 1% better at insulin sensitivity, toe strength, muscle mass, being able to put your focus where you want, when you want, for as long as you want, making the things you love the same things that are best for you? How can you have 1% more self-mastery? Eat 1% more unprocessed food. Move 1% more during the day. Stand up from your desk chair 1% more times. Get 1% more steps. Drink 1% more water. Breathe 1% more clean air. Spend 1% more time in nature. Eat 1% more fiber. Get 1% more protein. Eat 1% less emulsifiers. Use 1% less plastic. Meditate for 1% longer. Feel 1% more emotions. Play 1% more often. Consume 1% less news or social media. Lift something 1% heavier. Swim 1% farther, or row 1% faster. What do you want to focus on? I invite you to take a second, right this second, and tap into your intuition and ask yourself, what would change your life for the better in 2025 that you could improve on by 1%? Only choose one focus for right now. Choose only one area to work on and only one thing to improve on at first. Like the British cycling team, after you improve one aspect of your goal by 1%, you might move on to improving another aspect by 1%. But start with just one. What will you work on? Keep in mind opportunity costs and that whatever you spend your time and energy on means you can't spend your time and energy on something else. And make sure you're picking something that creates the life you'll be proud of when you reflect back from your deathbed. What matters more to you than anything else. What physiology do you need to be able to achieve that? What can you do to create that state of wellness? What can you do in 2025, starting today, that will change your life? I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think about the one thing you want to get better at, 1% at a time this year. Okay, you got it? Then think about exactly how you can improve that one thing by 1%. It's easy to see how many steps you usually get and figure out what 1% more would be. Other things might be a little less quantified, but do your best to put a number on them and figure out what 1% more is. If you usually get 7 hours and 15 minutes of sleep, you need to get 4.35 more minutes of sleep. You can do that. You can eat 1 more gram of protein or a 1% bigger serving of vegetables every day. You can meditate for 9 more seconds or run 105.6 more feet. It is doable. Modest and makeable fixes feel so good and can even aggregate and compound over time to change your life. As James Clear talks about in his book, getting 1% better at something every single day for a year makes you 37 times better at the end of the year. That's not 37%, it's 37 times, which is a 3,600% increase. What do you want to improve by 3,600%? That's what you need to start getting 1% better at today. To be clear, in order to get 3,600% better, you'd have to sleep 4.35 more minutes today, and then 4.39 minutes more, and then 4.4 minutes more, and on, and eventually you get past the point of positive returns. But you could totally get 3,600% better at an overall goal that sleep was only a piece of, like getting biologically older more slowly than you're getting chronologically older, or being more resilient, or putting more years lived in good health into your future. It's awesome. So back to my bus to the Spartan race partner, Brian Kane. He wrote a book called 1% Better. In it, he explains something obvious that I had never thought about before, and I think it can help all of us as we formulate our plan for 2025 to change our lives 1% at a time. He points out that 24 hours is 1,440 minutes. We all get 1,440 minutes a day to use wisely or unwisely to drive our lives forward or to shoot ourselves in the foot. 1% of 1,440 minutes is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. I think that's so powerful to know. So as you focus on improving one thing by 1% at a time this year, you can dedicate 14 minutes and 24 seconds to your best self and know that you're making the 1% cut. What could you do differently for just 14 minutes and 24 seconds of your day? Every day. Which 14 minutes and 24 seconds are you going to do it in? The first 14 minutes and 24 seconds of the day, tacked on to the end of your usual gym time, the 14 minutes and 24 seconds right after work, the 14 minutes and 24 seconds right before bed, when you brush your teeth, right after lunch. Make a definite plan and write it down. That will dramatically improve your odds of following through. Think of what a difference 14 minutes and 24 seconds a day can make. What if you spent 14 more minutes building muscle? 14 more minutes completely cut off from all inputs. 14 more minutes connected to the values that matter the most to you. 14 more minutes fully present with your loved ones. 14 more minutes hooking your future self up with the assets that will help her shine brighter as she gets older. I hope as you look forward to 2025, you consider the power of 1% gains. As long as you're consistent, a 1% improvement becomes huge over time. 14 minutes and 24 seconds can change your life. I really wanted to make this episode exactly 14 minutes and 24 seconds long because that seemed cool, but then it seemed like more effort to precisely orchestrate than it's probably worth. If a massive overhaul feels daunting, or if you've tried that in the past and it ended badly, all it takes is 1% today, followed by 1% tomorrow, and 1% the day after that, and you'll reach the point where you'll deserve to be knighted by the queen, or damed by the king, as the case would be now. I don't think that's a word either, but knights are knighted, so I'm saying that dames are damed, and you deserve it. Thank you so much for being here today. The world needs you at your best, and 2025 is your year. If you want help making the things you most enjoy doing, the things that are best for your health, come to my website, www.healthcouragecollective.com, or send me a message at healthcouragecollective@gmail.com, and let's get you on track to age abnormally well so you don't have to stop living before you die. Next week, we're going to talk about the universally neglected body part that gives you superpowers as you age. Until then, change your life in 14 minutes and 24 seconds a day, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.